This is Lincoln Easley from Easley's Entertainment, and I'm going to talk to you about the parts of this job that you have to protect yourself in. And I know this is a very touchy subject. Not a lot of people want to talk about this because it's very touchy, but a lot of it has to do with sexual harassment. You have ridiculous complaints that you have to deal with. And a good example that happened to me was when I got into face painting, and a lot of people looked at me as like, hey, wait a minute, you're a guy, you have no business doing face painting. What makes you think you can do face painting? You're just a guy. I've actually had young ladies tell me this is a girl's job, not a man's job. I had no business doing it. And they actually would go to whoever's in charge and complain of sexual harassment, and I'm catching the heat. Luckily for me, I had my ex-wife working with me at the time, and she was able to go and say, hey, wait a minute, that didn't happen, and was able to clear me. The one lady got fired for doing what she did because she made a false complaint. But things like this happen all the time. It could happen to women as well. A lot of times people would actually file a complaint against you just for smiling. A good example, you're over there face painting a child and you're sitting there being that big kid with that child and making that child comfortable and happy while you're working, and a parent decides to complain to the organization that you're working at that they didn't like how you were doing the face painting because they didn't like the smile that you had on your face, and they would find that as a very offensive thing. So people get very offended over what I would say nothing in a lot of cases. You don't really hear a lot of entertainers doing a lot of stuff like that and getting themselves in trouble. So I'm going to give you some tips and advice on how to protect yourself in this. One way is having somebody to work with that you trust. I know it sounds crazy where you bring your mother to work, but a lot of times bringing your mom to work, bringing your dad to work, bringing somebody with you to work that can back your play is a really good way to protect yourself. Another way to protect yourself is have a sign up where you're working saying, I am recording in this booth. So you're actually having a camera recording you on the booth, because a picture says 1,000 words. Imagine what a camera would say. So usually they would believe the poor helpless mother versus the entertainer. It happens all the time. I've seen it happen to people. People will say anything, even if they catch you, because people want to do anything they can to avoid a lawsuit. And I hate to say, but entertainers are the first to go. I even had, and I will say this, several years ago, I'm not going to say where, but I was working at one event, and I decided I had to use the bathroom. I was doing balloons, I was working on tips, I was just doing my usual routine, and I went to go use the bathroom. Some girls came in the bathroom, they complained about us being in the bathroom, they wanted us kicked out, and wanted the men to leave the bathroom so they can use it. And when we refused to leave, they saw me there, and the first thing they did is they filed a complaint against me and said that I went into the bathroom and made sexual harassment comments to them. And doing this got me kicked out of the event, even though they didn't even bother to get my side of the story on it, which I was in the men's bathroom. It was not even like me to even do that. I mean, it doesn't happen. And I mean, I worked in the school districts, I worked in this business for a long time. Surprisingly, it doesn't just happen to me. I talk to a lot of entertainers that this stuff like this happen to, and it's very common. The other thing on protecting yourself in this line of work is whoever you hire, you are responsible for. So when you're hiring somebody and they tend to have a hot mouth, they will get you in trouble and they can get you kicked out of events. I actually had to fire people because they would not stop, and I had to let them go because they were going over and they were talking, they were causing fights with the people that hired me to come in. I had to put a stop to that. Another way to avoid getting yourself into trouble in this line of work is, I know it sounds counterproductive, and yes, we want minors to learn this stuff, but putting in the work is not the best thing I would advise. Like I said, who you are working, you're responsible for. When you have young girls or young boys working for you, one, you're dealing with their maturity. Two, I'm not saying all of them are like this, but some young men, they have hormone problems and they see pretty girls, and then all of a sudden they start getting a little dumb. And we're all of us guys at one time were like that, and some guys are very mature, but some guys lose their maturity on that. Young girls are the same way, and young girls can be that way, and that you can't afford to have them doing that. It's a very big thing to make sure you're able to protect these girls that are working that are even 18 years age or up. I have a code word, so a lot of times I say there's something in your hair, so that way I can go and make sure that the customer is not harassing my employees when they're working for me. So you got to protect your employees. But when you have young girls working for you that are under 17, 15, 16, 17 years old, you're dealing with a whole nother ball of wax. Because if somebody goes over and sexually harass them, it's on me. And in that case, it's a whole nother aspect. A lot of times, and you can't even enter in a contract with a minor, especially in California. So you have to make sure you're very aware of all these steps and all these protocols that you go through. And I say it's very important to create a good set of rules for you to follow and for your employees to follow. And it's very important that you follow your own rules so you can set an example for the people that work for you. The other thing that I'm going to state is a no-brainer. Do not drink on the job. Just because you go to a party doesn't mean it's okay for you to drink. Just because you're the boss doesn't mean it's okay for you to drink. Because you can easily go over and you can easily turn in to something else when you're drinking. I've seen it happen to entertainers, and it's not a good thing. It's not a pretty sight to get into. And on top of that, you have to drive home. You're also in danger on the road if you have to drive home. I've had one experience I had is some cultures, they find it offensive if you do not take their offerings. So like one time they offered me a wine cooler. So what I did is I actually put it in my driver's seat, and I figured I'd just drink it when I get home. And I find that is acceptable. So these are a couple different things that you can use to protect yourself on the job. Another real big one is, and I know it sounds crazy, is you do not want to get involved with your clients. And what I mean about that is, I understand that all of us people need to have a social life, and we need to bond with certain people. A lot of us want to have a relationship. A lot of us want to have a marital relationship. Regardless of what kind of relationship you want to have, the best thing I could recommend is do not get involved with any of your clients. And what I mean about this is when you get involved with somebody, it can cause problems. And that is a very, very bad way of conducting your business. And you do not even want people to know that you're the kind of guy that goes out and looks for young ladies or girls that do this, because it could come back and bite you. You do not, these are your customers, these are the people that trust you, they trust you with your kids. And it's very important that you follow those guidelines. And please subscribe. This is Lincoln Easley's Entertainment.